Hello and welcome to my channel. I remain your usual anchor, Mr. Miracle. Today is another therapy session with Mr. Paul. Over to you, Mr. Paul.
Good day, everyone. I'm glad to be in this session. My name is Paulinus Fugu, and it will be an amazing discussion today.
All right, straight into the issue we are discussing today. But before then, I want to read the profile of our guest in the house. Mr. Paul is a first-class graduate of statistics from Ndufu Alike Iko. Now, I know from wherever you're listening to this podcast from, you may not actually know where I'm describing, but it's a place in Ebonyi State where a federal university is established. And for us who attended the school, we believe it's a world-class university. Of course, it is. So he doubled also as the best graduating student in the entire school. Now, this profile I'm reading for you is because he is a first-class graduate in statistics. So it has to do with mathematics. And all what we do in this channel is trying to demystify the so-called hardness of mathematics to students. Okay, I would like to start by asking Mr. Paul a question. Before I ask the question is around IQ, like the factors that are responsible for somebody understanding mathematics or any calculation course or subject. Now, we say IQ is intelligent quotient, which are naturally measured in percentages. And if you have above 50, we assume you have high IQ, and below that, you have low IQ. So, Mr. Paul, is it actually a factor for one being able to understand the concepts of mathematics? Is IQ actually a factor?
Okay, so I will start by thanking you once again for the opportunity to communicate my persuasions and my experiences I've gathered over the years. So I would say intelligent quotient is only one of the factors that is responsible for success, even in understanding mathematics and academic success as a body. So high IQ doesn't necessarily translate into a good understanding of mathematics. There are different factors to consider. There is the factor of vision, for example. There is the factor of diligence. There is factor of dedication. There is the factor of commitment to excellence. So if you are looking at vision, for example, a wise man once said that where there is no vision, the people perish. So, for example, if you don't have vision to succeed academically, you will find it difficult, even if you have a high IQ. I've had a plethora of experiences of people that have high intelligence quotient, but they are not academically successful. Why? Because they don't have the vision, first of all, to even be academically successful. They don't have that diligence to sit down and say, okay, I want to put in the hard work, I want to put in the commitment, I want to put in the time it takes to pay the price to even become academically successful. They don't even have, would I say, the commitment to excellence, because we know that the road to success is not a sprint, right? The journey is not a sprint, it's a marathon. That you are successful or you have a good understanding in mathematics in this topic will not necessarily translate to the next one. So you have to have that commitment towards excellence. Commitment towards excellence. I would say IQ is on the bottom of the list.
Wow.
It's on the bottom of the list, actually.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. IQ is at the bottom of the list of what you actually need to understand maths. So what our guest is saying is, like I read his profile, you now know who he is. So he is trying to say that his achievements were not solely born out of the high intelligent quotient he has. And one of the major factors he mentioned that contributed to his success is vision. So we can interpret vision in the terms of goals, setting goals. What do you want at the end of a semester? What do you want at the end of a term? What are your plans for certain courses? What are your plans for certain subjects? And how will your plans towards this subject aid your CGPA or your secondary school results? So the mindset you have towards building all of these things actually builds up an energy within you to put in the work, the diligence. So you did mention practice. I want you to buttress on that point.
Okay, practice.
Yeah.
You know, nothing. One of my mantra on the journey towards success, academic success, and the rest of them is around practice, preparation. Right? Practice is a component of preparation, and preparation is the key to success. That's the philosophy I have. Preparation is the key to success. If you are not prepared, there is no basis for wanting to claim success. Success doesn't magically happen. Success is not incidental or accidental, rather. Success is intentional, right? It takes a level of practice, right?
Yeah.
Before you now become successful. So, practice in the sense that, for example, you want to have an understanding of a particular concept in mathematics. If you would agree with me, mathematics is the only topic you see textbook, you see a plethora of unsolved, you see examples and practice questions.
Yes.
Right?
Exercises.
So exercises. What you're supposed to exercise your mind to
Wow.
make it, build your stamina in understanding that concept.
Wow,
So there's a
wow,
reason
wow,
behind those exercises and
Yeah.
those practice questions.
You know, something just opened up now. Few of the textbooks use practice. The most I see is exercise. I'm just getting to understand now that it is actually an attempt on the side of the writer to get you to exercise your mind.
Yes. Yes. So the goal is to
Wow.
further deepen your understanding
Yeah.
and your comprehension of that particular concept
Yeah.
or that particular topic.
Yeah.
So practice is very important. You can't just practice one question and expect to have a grasp of the entire concept.
Yeah.
Right? You have to practice and practice and practice. So I would say, they say practice makes perfect, right?
Yeah.
So practice does not necessarily makes perfect. Practice makes progress, right?
Wow.
So, but consistent
Practice
consistent practice is what beats perfection.
Wow. Okay. I think that's a line you have to add to your mantra. Practice makes progress.
Yes.
Consistent practice makes perfect.
Yes.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. Now, there is something in maths called basic operation. That's the addition, the multiplication, the division, and the subtraction. So one's ability to manipulate these four basic operations, does it actually equate to the fact that that person can actually handle maths?
Okay. Yes, it does. In a building, for example, there is the foundation, there is the pillars, and there are other supporting structures that makes up the whole building.
Yeah.
So you cannot jump foundation. Those are those basic operations, your additions, your subtractions, your square roots, all of those granular things that are very easy to grasp are in some sense the basic form of mathematics that is readily understandable for every person. Right? So you cannot jump addition, for example, and start doing calculus. You'll be lost.
Yeah.
You can't jump square root multiplication and start doing trigonometry or plane shapes. You'll be lost.
Yeah.
So those are the basics.
Yeah.
If you get the basics, you get the foundation, then other things will come in hand.
Okay. Yeah. I think in maths department, actually, one of the major thing they mention always is prerequisite. Every subject you study in maths is a prerequisite to the next.
Yes.
Okay, so it means maths is about building upon concepts.
Yes.
So if one can manipulate the basic concepts, it means understanding other concepts will be a bit easier for the fellow or the person. Okay, so what you're saying in essence is that for any particular concept you're dealing with, for instance, if I mention Pythagoras theorem now, the theorem is simple. The square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the other two sides, which is the opposite and the adjacent. And the sum there is addition. So supposing we were looking for the hypotenuse, we are simply doing an addition rule and taking the square root of both sides,
Yes.
actually to get the unknown, which we supposedly say is the hypotenuse. Okay, so in this case now, the basic operation there is so simple that it's just addition. And you may need to do square root. But now this is a concept by Pythagoras. And he had a communication in mind. So my belief was that math is always like you fitting into the concept of the progenitor of any concept. Like now, for me to be able to solve Pythagoras theorem, I need to think like Pythagoras thought before he brought up those concepts. So is it a healthy idea?
So I would say that is not necessarily a healthy idea,
Okay.
right? Because we don't want to be fitting into the mindset of every person that postulated a theory in mathematics. Those theorems or those principles already are built upon foundational principles in mathematics. Just like you say, they are basic operations.
Yeah.
The square of the hypotenuse equals adjacent
sum.
square, the sum of the adjacent, the square of the adjacent, and the opposite squared, right?
Yeah.
So that's a theorem postulated by Pythagoras, but he built it upon some of these basic operations like squared and addition. Why it is important, we are not negating or neglecting the theorems that was built, but it is important that we don't try to fit into the mindset of a progenitor before we fully grasp their concepts.
Wow. Okay, that's nice. So sometimes we may think that, oh, the postulators of these concepts are wicked people. Like, how will somebody even think of change of subject formula? How will somebody come up with quadratic equation? Like, algebra is
the almighty formula.
yeah. Algebra is a kind of a very difficult concept for mostly secondary school children, because I can't even place why. Because the concept is so easy to follow. Everything is laid down. Either you're factorizing, or you're completing the square, or you're using the formula to solve. Completing the square is actually a way of forcing the equation to be factorizable.
Yes.
And you have an excess on the right hand side to deal with. So the concepts are actually exciting, but they are scared. So I want you to just give us a brief history of your secondary school experience of math.
Okay, so my secondary school experience of mathematics, right? So I would say mathematics has always been a key that opens understanding of every other topics.
Okay.
So I would say this because if I'm finding, for example, biology difficult, I'm finding chemistry difficult, I just need to start solving mathematics, practice and practice and practice, because of course those mathematical concepts are in some sense difficult to grasp, but when you start cracking the code and start getting them, it opens your mind to accommodate other subjects. So my secondary school experience has been a platform where I practice mathematics with a community. I had a community, people that inspired me. So I would say in junior secondary school, for example, one of those in my GSS2, right? I was very playful, but I loved maths. I practiced mathematics a lot. So I was on the pitch playing football when someone called me that my mathematics teacher is calling me, right? So when I thought I had offended my mathematics teacher, she was a disciplinarian. So when I went there, she started looking at me and was shouting, And then what was the shout? Now how come I got a perfect score in mathematics? How come I got 100 over 100
Yeah.
out of the whole students in the whole school? I was shocked. I thought I was going to be disciplined. So from there, I started going for national competitions and the rest of them. In my secondary school, I kind of lost touch with that community. I'm trying to emphasize the importance of having a community that
Yeah.
helps you, inspires you to want to solve maths.
Yeah.
Right? In SS1, the first term, I did not have that community. But when a person came from a private school and came to our school, the person started bagging best in mathematics. Right? That was when
And you were
I was
inspired.
inspired. I started solving mathematics with the person, and then it clicked.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. You can hear Mr. Paul's story for yourself. So, one of the key things we've learned today is practice. Practice makes progress, and
Consistent practice
consistent practice
makes
makes
perfect.
for perfection. Yeah. So, don't forget that. Now, before we go, I want to address an issue like what preparation does for every learning session you go into. It works for all things, not just math now. Anywhere you find yourself, before you learn, you ought to be prepared to learn whatsoever will be taught. So, how do we deal with the issue, Mr. Paul, where secondary school students mostly now who spend their nights obviously watching movies and then they sleep late at night, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and they are obviously tired. And definitely they'll wake early just to catch up with school. So there's no relaxation in the mind, and thereby causing what we call a cognitive impairment. It's
Cognitive
actually going to
impairments.
reduce their ability to comprehend
Yeah.
and slow the pace of their understanding. So, how do we deal with such a situation?
So I would say is going back to the matter of vision I earlier stated.
Okay.
Right? If you have a drive, if you have something, that you are earnestly chasing after, some of these unnecessary distractions, I would call it, would not come to play in that setting. For example, you want to be successful, you want to have 100% score in
Yeah.
mathematics. Let's set it as a goal, right? I know that the next day your mathematics teacher will teach you a subject. I'm talking as in the basic level I can think of. The next day your mathematics teacher is going to teach you a subject, and you know that it requires a level of relaxation of the mind to be able to comprehend some of those complex things that the mathematics teacher might introduce. What do you do? We are not saying that watching movies and all of these things are not good, but there's a time for everything.
Yeah.
There's a time to sleep, there's a time to watch movies, there's a time to study your mathematics, and all of those things. So sustain that discipline to sleep when you're supposed to sleep, to watch movies when you're supposed to watch movies,
Exactly.
and don't allow those excesses get the better of you. So once you're able to do that, touching base with your vision, because that vision is what drives passion, right? And it is your passion that now brings about a commitment towards your intended vision or goal. You have a goal, right? Goal of wanting to become the best graduating student, goal of wanting to get a perfect score in mathematics. It now bets a passion, the desire, the drive to want to pursue it. That desire and drive will now give you that commitment to your goal, your dedication to your goal. So you can see what one leads to this. If you don't have what you are pursuing after, it will be easy to even spend the night, the whole night, watching movies and the rest of them,
Cartoons and
because
play
there's nothing
games.
you are chasing after.
Yeah.
Do you get that? So touch base with your vision, that vision, or draft a vision, have a goal every semester or every term. Have a goal for all your topics. Have a goal, not just mathematics, now for all your topics. That goal will help you, will be like a fuel, a fuel that will keep pushing you,
Driving
and then
force.
gives you that dedication to stay commitment to that your vision that it works on too late.
Wow. That's nice. Okay. Well, I want to add to that See now that you are a tertiary institution student, or you are in a university or any tertiary institution per se, I think what Mr. Paul is saying can work for you. But when we begin to discuss for a secondary school child, who obviously take instructions from the parents. So this is now to the parents. You have to be aware of the kind of activities your children engage with, because
Mm-hmm.
it's going to serve as a mind factor to their academic
Mm.
success. So instead of allowing them to stay late at night, it's better you give them that commanding voice. Get to bed. You have a long day tomorrow. Of course, that's what school is. It's always a long
Long
day.
day. Yes.
So you ought to be prepared, and psychologically prepared,
Mentally.
mentally, like physically fit
Yes.
to carry on the day ahead of you. So it means that your children may not have vision because they are secondary school children. They are not enlightened to that extent, but you as a parent can do that for
For
them.
them. Yes.
Draft out a timetable for them, the activities for the week, when to watch movie and when not to watch movie. If you ask me, movie at the weekends is the best, not during the weekday, so as they can have adequate time for their assignments and practices, and probably also perfect time of rest. So I will leave us here because Mr. Paul wants to catch up with another activity. Um, I think we'll be having us next time. Mr. Paul will come on this show again. So it has been a nice therapy session with Miracle, your usual host, and you are
Paul, thank you very much for having me on the show. I really
okay.
appreciate
Please
it.
don't forget to subscribe. You can also drop your comments on the comment section. We want to know your idea, how you feel, and what's going on in your house. How are your students faring with mathematics? Thank you and bye bye.